chaps. Very quiet. And as I was saying, cat egalitarian eating. Nobody's fighting over food. Everyone's taken their share off. It looked like a fairly big bone. Let's move slightly closer in. Very helpful if Rusty wouldn't rev quite so high every time we start her. Dee, I'm going to have to ask for your question again. We're just going to quickly see what's going on here. Yeah, I think it's a Nyala. It is a Nyala. V, you're wondering if they're the same as dingoes or coyotes. They're not the same as dingoes or coyotes. Coyotes are much more like jackals. They're part of the same family. They're all the dog family. But wild dogs are in a genus all of their own, which means they cannot interbreed with things like wolves, domestic dogs, coyotes, or indeed dingoes. And most of those belong to the genus Canis, which is the most common dog genus. Oh, listen to it. And these ones belong to the genus Lycaon. Right. Oh, seems to be a bit of mating behavior going on there. It's probably two youngsters. Now, Siberia Zumi, I'm afraid I cannot answer this question. You say to me, oh, is this the Investec pack? I have lost track of who's who and how and where. I don't know, I'm afraid. It's been so long since I saw the pack this size that I'm not sure which pack it is. Not even sure how many we have here. And of course it's quite difficult to tell with them all knocking about the place, running like they are. But there are a lot of youngsters. I can't see, I don't think, more than 3 adults or so. Here's an adult coming to the left, on the left. Oh, hello. I don't think you should climb onto the car. David, I think that dog wants to give you a piece of its breakfast. Wouldn't that be nice? Would you like a piece of Nyala for breakfast? Hello, little wild dog. Right, now going back around the side. I was saying that everybody shares and they get their share. Well, they do normally. But they do, once the carcass has been torn apart, there is an element of sort of thievery that goes along. But it seems to be much more good-natured than it is, for example, with lions. After a tremendously quiet morning, this is a brilliant way to kind of come to the climax. Ali, you have asked the same question that Red Riding Hood asked of the Big Bad Wolf. And the answer that the Big Bad Wolf gave to Red Riding Hood is the same. You said, why do wild dogs have such big ears? Well, the answer, Ali, is all the better to hear you with, my dear. The reason they have such big ears is because they use them tremendously to communicate with each other, especially when they're on the hunt. They use sound. And they must have their big ears they use them like satellite dishes, and they pick up the whooping calls that they make when they're on the hunt, and then the chittering and chattering when they do actually kill something. And you know, I think it's given us a huge amount of insight following these dogs on the hunt, following them on the hunt with the drone as opposed to the vehicle, which has allowed us to see that like that latest research has showed, their hunting is much more random than we ever thought it was before. And those ears, when they bombshell in 100 different directions trying to catch things, play a massively important role in finding each other. And I think, and I'm sort of slightly ashamed to say this, that I think we've made it at times very difficult for them to find each other and follow each other during the hunt because of the vehicles moving behind them. Because their behavior while we were watching them with the drone, I think, was relatively different. You know, they didn't seem to lose each other as readily as when we were following them in the cars. This is just brilliant, isn't it wonderful? Of course, dreadful behavior to play with your food like that. And now, I'm still trying to share with David, but David is not interested in taking any food from them. Akib, you want to know how long ago I think they made this kill? I don't think more than 15 minutes ago. I think they lost them coming into the drainage line. I mean, the other game drives. They found a nyala, flushed it, killed it, and within the last 15 minutes they've torn it to pieces, and they're now enjoying the spoils of their kill. This is wonderful stuff. And things will now settle quite nicely, I think. You say, how fast do I think they will devour this prey? Well, I think they're pretty much done, and I think it's probably taken them about 15 minutes or so. They'll eat the last bones and that sort of thing for the next little while, but otherwise it's pretty much done, V. They eat very fast. They bolt their food very quickly. This is fantastic. How lucky we are. And it doesn't seem that anybody else wants to come to the sighting, so we won't complain about that at all. We'll be more than happy to have it ourselves. Enjoy the cavorting around that they are engaging in. David just next to us, of course. It's, your friend who was trying to share with you, but you didn't want to share with him. Not sure why you were so churlish about that. Just one or two monotonous larks still calling in the background. Otherwise all is rather gorgeous peacefulness here. Great time in front of us now. I imagine, David, filming a wild dog sighting is a little bit like being asked to film butterflies.
A little more tricky.
They don't sit still for very long. Christina, you want to know if they bark. They don't bark like your garden variety Fido, no, but they do make an alarm bark, which I'm not going to imitate now because that might give them a bit of a fright. But it's sort of loud, and they do it once, so they'll get up and they go quite loudly. That's the only barking that they do. When they're communicating with each other, though, there's no barking. It's much more twittering, that sort of twittering sound that you can hear them making now. They do a lot of. Isn't this brilliant? And you can see, I mean, immediately, because they are so active, they're always entertaining to watch. You never find yourself in a situation like you do often with lions, where you wonder if they're actually going to do anything other than lie around. And I don't know, every so often you might just be able to hear them making that kind of woofing sound. Justin, you want to know one of my best wild dog sightings? Well, that's a very easy question to answer. It was a sighting we had on foot here when Scott was following the dogs down the road, and Andrew and I were on bushwalk, and we just our paths happened to coincide. We sort of guessed where the dogs might go, and we went and sat on the road, and they came right past us, Andrew, and the adults looked at us and just carried on going, and then the pups stopped, and they stopped about 2 meters from us and just stopped to look and investigate. One went round the side to smell. I never felt any sense of threat, just a sense of real sort of honor, and it's that, I mean, I do bang on about this, but it's that sort of rare touch that you have with the wilderness, where something completely wild has chosen to come into your space, and it gives you a very rare kind of, a very rare and very strong connection with something so wild, with the wilderness. And so that was definitely the most special wild dog sighting I ever had, even though it only lasted probably less than a minute. Very special indeed that was. Wild dogs on foot are always special, and in fact one of the first big game sightings I ever had on foot was with wild dogs. And April, you say this is your first time seeing the wild dogs live. That's fantastic, April. I'm glad. I hope you're enjoying it as much as I am. You can see I'm shooting the odd photograph, trying to take a little bit of video, but it's impossible, of course, because these